Hello, hello. Welcome to the placement game, another episode. We're here with Elliot today. Elliot, it's a pleasure to have you on the podcast.
Hi Harvey, you okay?
I'm good. How's life?
Hectic. I was just
Yeah,
telling you as a bit intro, yeah, manic back to back today. So
yeah. Cool, man. Cool. I mean, starting out, normally what we would do is obviously dive deep into a bit about your background.
mhm.
Obviously, getting the audience to know who you are, how you actually originally got into recruitment. So yeah, tell me more about that.
Yeah, I think what's important. I've done 15 years now in the game, 16 years in the industry, and I don't think I've ever seen a more changing time than what we've got coming through with AI and the impact that that's having.
Yeah,
Um, Selling is definitely different. But to give you where I started, I was a typical recruiter where I was a university dropout, did a bit of travelling, fell into sales, did well at that, went to the next job, did well at that. And, I was going nowhere really with my career.
yeah,
Sat down, I remember it distinctly. I was out actually sitting around a table having a few beers with all my university mates. Everybody had done their course, done well at it, and they were a good group. And I looked around the table and tried to figure out who was earning the most money around the
yeah,
table. And I pinpointed two of the girls, and they were both in recruitment. And I was like, wow, I need to get into that. What is that all about? So yeah, I had a drunken chat. I think literally the next day started applying for jobs, and within 48 hours I was working for Project Resource. They no
cool.
longer existed. They've been bought by Novartis now. So I went from trainee with those guys, joined in 2008, right on the cusp of the housing crash, literally
Yeah.
the second week in recruitment, and I was hired to effectively double mark a desk and beat another guy on a desk to keep my job.
Mm.
Thankfully I did it. Thankfully I stepped there and learned a lot of skills about how to actually get a customer to spend money during that time. And then that evolved, went through, all the usual stuff, senior manager and through to a board director. Did that for a year running the north of them, then had a big falling out with the leader of the company, left the business, and 3 months, 6 months later, ProBuild was born. So
Cool,
here we are now. We've been trading now for 6 years. We're very much a lifestyle business. We've gone on that growth journey that maybe a lot of people listening to this may be thinking about or part way. We went up to 10 staff across two business units, and now we're back down to the two original owners. And to be frank, we've never been more happier.
man.
I'm sure we'll touch on that a lot, Harvey.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, that's about me really. There is another step to this journey that's important and quite a good one for people to listen to, I guess. Is we set up in February officially. That's when we started, and guess what? March 23rd, we were sitting in the office, and COVID-19 came along.
Yeah.
So we had a smashing first couple of weeks. We had like 6, 7 deals on the board ready to go, all due to start.
Mm.
None of them started. Every single one got pulled. So that was more of a panic station. But thankfully, we set up the business quite well. We had cash in the bank, and there was opportunity to again pretty much sit down and do nothing. So you may remember that summer. It was an absolutely boiling summer coming through March into July. And again, like I said, I had a young family. We took time to be able to spend that with them.
Mm.
We effectively shut the business or paused the business until July. We started calling clients, how you been? And they were wondering where the bloody hell we been, because all of a sudden we were having that dip to reaction.
Mm.
That everybody was checking out their job, so people needed to go.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Back
it
in
was
COVID, I was in school, if I can remember rightly.
no
So
way.
that was
How
like
young
the best.
are you?
I'm
Jesus.
18, so
Yeah, yeah.
back in COVID, that was like the best 2 years of my life. No school. But yeah, I
Yeah,
was
but
just
you miss a
playing
lot
video
though, right?
games all day. Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah. We didn't really. It wasn't that much like learning in that period. But yeah, you grew the team up to like a really good point where you had like over 10 people,
Yeah, the rest
and
of the
you.
journey, we did the one business, and we had a call from an ex-employee, and he said, "Oh, long short, I don't want to work for these guys anymore. Can I come and work with you?" We didn't want to hire. We literally wanted our lifestyle business at the time. We were doing
Mm,
3 days a week, doing better numbers than we've probably ever done before in any other business, and living the life that was there. So we
yeah.
didn't want to spoil that. We set up a second business. 12 months later, I think it was around that sort of time, maybe 6, 9, he had a call from, again, another ex-employee. We need 70 staff. So, yeah, he had an opportunity to grow. Smashed it, had a record quarter.
Mm,
Um, Me and Carl were sitting there, probably looking at each other, going like, bloody hell, maybe we're missing a trick here. Maybe we should
yeah.
hire. So I remember today we sat around a room, we sketched it out, we planned our values, and we did really well. I'm sure you're going to lead into it, so I may as well carry on. But we hired up to 10. We had 6 under Pro Civils, 4 under Pro Build. Well, actually, we had 11. Sorry, we had 5 under Pro Build, and businesses rocketed. You know, we had 2 quarters where we were again record numbers. It was easy, right? You know, I'm sure you've had other customers you've spoken to, Harvey, where they've discussed what they were doing and how they were placing people. It was quite easy to get a deal done, and then all of a sudden it wasn't. And as that friction started to come along, we had people underperforming. You know, we had a young leader in the other business, and it was tricky because the way that the two worked together, you know, we were letting people get away with things.
Yeah.
And to be fair, you know, my fault. I see myself as a more senior member of the team and the leader, and I wasn't firm on it. So all of a sudden we were doing really well, and when we weren't, we had to get rid of people, and the culture just went backwards. You know, we sort of switched mindset from a growth business back to a lifestyle business. And Pro Civils, we took that back to a remote business, just 2 of them working at home. And then Pro Build, we had a team of 4, but we'd gone from an 18-bay office on this growth plan within 3 months to a 4-bay office. And fair play to the 2 lads we had, they were doing all right. You know, one was smashing it still, the other guy was still, you know, quite young but doing okay. He was on probation, if I remember right, and we extended that, but he was pretty honest. He came to us and said, listen, I'm not being funny. I joined this company when there was 10 of you, and there was girls, and there was partying, and that's the lifestyle I want. Now I'm sitting in the room with 2 old farts, you know. Anymore. It's like, look, totally get it. And to be fair to the guy, we still keep in touch now. He's doing really well at another bigger brand, another big company, and, you know, I hope he thanks us for starting off his career. And then Carl and I were... effectively a twosome again and back to the lifestyle that we liked. So yeah, we're happy with that. We're on, you know, a different journey now, I think is probably the best way of putting it.
There's a point in recruitment where people feel the only way to scale past the ceiling that they're currently at, like their effort ceiling as a solopreneur or like a team of 2, is to hire more people. What sort of advice would you give firstly in terms of when you do start hiring? Like what's the main key advice when looking for people?
Yeah. The thing that I believe, so we've done this in the past with Project Resource to a success where we've hired really well. One of the things that we didn't really drill down on when we did it in Pro Build was being very, very hot. First of all, on the numbers, and more about the sort of key elements within the business that allows you to hire. How much cash flow you've got coming in, how many freelancers you have on the book, right? If you're going to take an extra overhead, they're going to take 9 months before they actually get up and billing. Have you got coverage for that? Now, we scoped it, but we only scoped it 3 to 6 months. And when we actually started hitting those numbers, we thought, brilliant, this is easy, you know? We were good at getting, we had, 4 consultants we got from 0 to 20K a month within 6 months. Yeah. So our performance and our training, you know, it's very hot on training. The performance measures were there, but then it became inconsistent. And if you don't build in that and you hire too many people, which is what we did, let's be honest about it, we hired too many people too quickly, and it goes backwards. And you're going to make sure you're going to have a situation where you're over invested in the business without enough profitability. So it's a very simple thing to do, but when you're in the moment and you're a salesperson and you're willing to take risks, you sometimes need that person in the ear just to calm you down a little bit.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's a massive skill in and of itself. Like, I think there's different points within business journeys where you get to a point where you need to learn a skill, and then the next level of business is like a completely different skill, like hiring a team. What would you say the biggest difference is from having that to like now where you're just 2 co-founders? What's the benefit firstly of just being like a smaller team versus a bigger team? Because for me, I would rather be like a solopreneur. And I guess one thing that we can touch on is how you can be more efficient when working as a solopreneur and sort of hiring more people, I guess like through using like AI to X your outputs.
Yeah. I think one thing I didn't touch on earlier, if I can just backtrack on that question a second, is having a clear goal of what you're looking to achieve. If you're going to grow, that goal has to be pinned on the wall, in your wallet, on the background of your phone, and you have to live by that day in, day out, because we had a very successful lifestyle business. That was the goal. That was what we were doing. We then flipped that into a growth business. But we didn't have any plan to hit certain numbers, or we didn't have a certain plan to hit a certain EBITDA that we'd be able to sell the business. Yeah. There was nothing mapped out within our company. Although we had business plans, but they were no longer than 12 months. Okay? I think that if you don't have that goal, then you won't work towards what you're looking to achieve, and therefore you'll make business decisions within the moment or on emotion. So coming back to the question of like moving forward, what would you? I think you were saying what was it like now to grow a team effectively? Is that what you were after, Harvey?
Yeah.
Yeah, and you lent on you were saying, look, I prefer to be a solo entrepreneur.
Hmm.
I think that the reason I went back to goal is that's very important. What is your goal within your business, Harvey?
Yeah.
What is your goal if you're listening to this and you're thinking about a recruitment team? Are you looking to grow? Because you have to exit that business, therefore you need other people in the business.
Hmm.
People are a pleasure and people are a headache. So having the right people doing the right roles is absolutely fundamental. If you are
Hmm.
going to grow as a company, you have to do that.
Yeah.
Okay. However, we're now doing a different growth journey, which is what I sort of touched on earlier.
Yeah.
We will hire, we will have more people, but we're not doing that today. We're probably not going to do that in 2026.
Hmm.
What we're investing a lot of time in is automation, technology, and actually outsourcing the jobs we have.
Mm.
Uh, Rather than having the headache of having to manage the people, train the people, we're willing to either look at an AI solution, an automation solution, a workflow solution, or outsource that to other countries or Fiverr or other things like that.
A massive part as well is what you've sort of touched on is when hiring as well, you need a foundation of like leverage. I think when you hire and you don't have, which by the way is automation and AI, in this case, when you don't have that, I think it can be coming from someone who has hired in the past. I think it can be obviously not as experienced as you in that sense, but it can be stressful where you don't have that leverage in place. You don't have them sort of automations in place to make that life a lot easier. There are some lower leverage tasks that can be delegated to human, like 100%. But I think there are also some tasks that are delegated to humans that can be executed on like a much more efficient level using AI, and like you don't need to manage AI also. Well, you manage it, but not as much as like a human, I
Yeah,
guess.
yeah, yeah. Like we've discussed, right? You're young in your journey, mate, so you don't know the mistakes you don't know yet.
Mm.
You haven't made those mistakes, but what I can tell you is that people are a headache. That they are. Everybody has emotions and everybody invests in people and cares about them, even if you're a good leader or a bad leader.
Yeah.
And to actually remove that element, if you are going to go down an AI route, it's definitely a win.
Mm.
I think that, look, I don't think AI is the be end or end all, but if you're not using it and you're not building systems, which I think is what you were touching on early on, if you're not
Yeah.
building recruitment systems to hire or to recruitment systems to train or AI systems to do a function, if you don't have the system nailed,
Mm.
then you won't succeed.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, are you guys implementing AI within ProBuild currently? Walk me through.
yeah, massive. Yeah, no, we were. I'd like to say we're early adopters, but I'm not really sure. When I
Mm.
mentioned earlier on, we had the one business and Pro Civils went back to working from home. One of the lads set up an AI company
Yeah.
within that. So we sort of parted way, supported him, had conversations really, really early doors. We were one of the first adapters of automation.
Mm.
Sourcewell hooked us in, and we love those products, and they used us as an early trial test on their beta, which they never released. Um, but we had access to something that other people didn't. So we've always I love that sort of side of it.
Yeah.
Love the operation side of recruitment, and from there I've we're talking what 2 years ago, 3 years ago now really.
Mm.
Um, those sort of operators have been good,
Hmm.
and yeah, from an AI perspective, there's different functions that you can draw upon these products. But unless you have an AI strategy, then you ain't going to have
Yeah.
an AI
I
function.
think I think people just hear the word AI, and they sort of associate it with something that it isn't, like a tool. I think the real growth within AI is like infrastructure systems, like you said. Another thing is, I think, especially within recruitment, there's a lot of people who, when they hear AI, it's almost like a wall comes up. Um,
Oh,
that
really?
they're like closed off about it. From what I've heard, anyway, they love the sort of old school methods of doing, I guess, outreach and stuff like that, and they think it's like a lot more efficient. But I guess it's just because they haven't seen the effects of it. There's a lot of like misconception out there, I guess, about
Yeah.
AI where it's like taking over the whole process. What advice would you give to them people who are sort of closed-minded, about AI and what's the obviously like you said the benefits that it's brought to you guys?
Yeah, look, if I'd be surprised if there be many listeners to this podcast that haven't
Yeah,
adapted some form of AI. That's your game, right, Harvey? That's what you guys are good at. Um, if there are listeners listening to this, then
Mm.
if you don't adapt, if you don't do something, your business will be gone in the next few years. It just
Yeah,
will. There's absolutely no way that they'll be able to function because the time savings you can have, therefore the cost savings you can have on the operation side of the business is there.
mm.
It is orders of magnitude of time saving.
Yeah,
The other thing is as well that allows that, from a recruiter's perspective, is the amount of people you can reach from it that you couldn't reach before because there are so many softwares out there now, or are so many platforms like LinkedIn that we all
mm.
use that you can't go through and connect and do everything that you need to one by one anymore. It just doesn't
Mm.
exist. You just don't have time to it. The world doesn't allow you to do this. If you're not doing it, then I'm doing it, and I'm doing 100 a day every single day that you're not doing.
Mm.
So in those sort of races, if you're not using automation or you're not going through and actually um, utilizing AI in so many functions across the business, then you're going to struggle.
Yeah, I think it is just Xing your outputs. I mean, as like coming from a solopreneur, I feel with the manual inputs,
Hmm.
there is a ceiling. I've spoke to a lot of recruitment founders out there where their sort of business is attached to their time. Like the more you put in, the more your business grows. The less you put in, the more your business stagnates. And I
Yeah,
feel like when you bring
we all
AI
are.
to that,
We all
yeah,
are.
when you bring AI to that table, your outputs are only going to increase. And when you have systems in place where they're not reliant on the founder,
Hmm.
you break through that ceiling. Your business is now scalable, whereas before it was almost like a high demanding job. You're having to do every manual task, like you said. When you have systems in place like this, it's just scaling your outputs.
Yeah, but let's
100%.
talk about this a little bit more because this is the bit I get excited about. Again, I
Mm.
think we're one of the forefront users from the networks that I'm in. We're part of a recruitment network. I'm sure you can guess which one. And they've been a champion of AI really early doors as well. Now,
Mm.
a lot of people within that network bought into it and a lot of people didn't. And anytime I do a group session, I always feel that we're doing more than the next person. I'm probably doing it better.
Yeah.
So what we're seeing out there is that if I start with a headline, that you have to allow AI to be able to use you. You have to use AI within systems that allow you to be the human. So
Mm.
you have to keep the human tasks, and
Yeah.
anything that's
100%.
not that has to be done by an AI. So if we go through, a top-down approach, when we're advertising, we have one prompt, and from that one prompt, we have one copy and paste, and everything is done. Okay, you probably won't remember the days before Broadbeans and the likes where you had to manually paste across 5 different job boards.
Mm.
Okay, Broadbean integrators have always been there, but the fact that you can write a job advert based on your client profile, have it keyword optimized to make sure you're top of, I don't know, CV library search, or that you're top of a Google search, to have the language laid out so that the person wants to apply for it rather than
Yeah.
just having to keep to the same format and template, and then have every single advert different. Bear in mind, I advertise quantity surveyor in Manchester pretty much daily. You have to have some variance. If you don't have that, then you're going to fall behind from an application perspective.
Mm.
Then there's an outreach perspective, and an outreach for me is one probably we want to talk about a little bit more, really, because we're going through another phase of outreach at the moment, because everything we get in our inbox, I think my first message to you, Harvey, wasn't it? Was, if you're just trying to sell me something, then there's no point me getting on this call, right? And you
Yeah.
said, oh, well, that's not how we approach it. But every single person, every recruiter should have or has an outreach system now.
Hmm.
And the problem is that so many of these source whales, elays, the others in the world that people use, they don't have the personalisation that people
Mm.
want. It feels very inhuman. And we're on the next phase now where we need to combine the human element and the automation outreach, right? So every single QS out there, I'm sure every time they log on LinkedIn probably has 5 messages from people like me about it. How do we get that person to come to me rather than the next person. And that comes down to personalization. That comes down to taking the time to actually understanding their profile. So we now have a system in place that utilizes both the human element and the AI element to be able to mass outreach and get the stuff to the people, but still have a personalization in there that
Yeah.
actually is human from me rather than just everybody
Yeah.
else.
I think that's why it's such a big factor where people have that objection around where it's like, oh, AI is going to take over my whole sales process. Like within the marketing sector, for like the last 2 years, the biggest understanding that I've got from that, which I take into the AI business now, is that people do buy from people. I hate generic AI outreach more than anything. I would never do that. We even have a team of cold callers. Do you know what I mean? Because there's that human connection. People still like that. It's still effective. Obviously, it's a lot less scalable, but 100%. I feel the sweet spot is you have to manage it, right? You have to manage the AI and the human connection. But yeah, like you said, people do buy from people. So I think that's like one of the most important things is
Yeah.
not being generic and being personable.
I'm sure everybody's heard this phrase a lot, but we don't use AI to replace me. We use
Mm.
AI to get me in more rooms, to get
Yeah,
me on more phone calls. That's the point of utilising the outreach process.
100%.
But a word of warning to anybody who's not started this, you asked earlier on, there's people that are AI fearful. You have to get on board, but if you do just use AI generic
Yeah.
swap, you will get found out. It's
Hmm.
obvious, right? I get it all the time in my inbox. So why would you not think your candidates or your managers are not getting it from their positions?
Mm.
So AI outreach is a hot one for me at the moment because it's very much front and center in mind where we need to keep the magnitude, the volume of what we get going out
Mm.
versus the human side of it. So that
Yeah,
we
and
can
how's that going for you guys currently? Like the
good. As I say, we're about 2 weeks into the hyper personalization. We found we found a searching software and something else. We built a couple of GPTs using Claude or well, they're not GPTs on there, are they? Automation flows or
yeah, yeah.
using what's called co-work on Claude to link into the software, and it actually connects into our CRM as well. So it
Mm.
allows us to see all the stuff that we've done previously, and gives us that USP compared to another competitor. So
Hmm.
Claude knows what we have done, therefore it's original to us, and that gives you a differentiation point to anybody
Mm.
else.
Yeah,
Um,
Claude's a game changer. I feel like there's so much out there where people get overwhelmed by it though.
yeah.
Like
Well,
obviously the
there's a couple of shortcuts you can use though. So we can go. I'll give you more user cases. I think it's important because people always think, oh
Mm.
well, AI is a big subject, but they never get user cases. We have an AI receptionist. I'm slightly late to this podcast because we had a client call in to our office. He was happy to speak to the AI receptionist. The
Mm.
AI receptionist came to me and delivered that to me.
Mm.
It worked smoothly, right? What I didn't get put through to me was the 25 of the labours that have called today. We don't do labour. So having 25 phone calls where I have to answer the phone and go, we don't do labour,
Mm.
it saves me so much time.
It's a
But the AI,
qualification process.
yeah, the AI filtered out that was a customer and put it
Mm.
through to my mobile directly.
Yeah.
So it works slick, and we just track it and see if there's any analysis. The reason I reference that is that that is a very simple user case that people can build. I know
Mm.
how to build them. I've never built them before. We've used partners that have built them, but
Yeah.
I'm paying 20 quid for a software at the moment that does that for me. Saves me
Yeah.
loads of 20 quid a month.
We do also build that pretty much the exact
Yeah,
system. So there we go.
yeah, yeah. Well, I think you could. I've used two of the softwares and signed up for them. And they're like 5 quid a piece.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you know what you're doing, you can build a very good product around it. I've got a friend who's selling a business. Sorry, not selling a business. His job is selling voice agents for other companies, not in recruitment, in
Hmm.
other businesses.
Yeah.
And yeah, he's doing really well out there. I think there's a definite marketplace out there. Um,
100%.
we could build that ourselves, but the point I'm trying to make is we don't have the time to build that, so we bought it off the shelf.
Hmm.
Um, we use, I've got like a 6 agent software package where it analyzes all the social media posts from my competitors, my customers, and
Mm.
brings it into a feed about what's important for me so that I don't have to scrape
Yeah.
LinkedIn and scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll. I can just see the headlines of what's important to me. And
Mm.
look, will it get it 100% right? Probably not. But does it save me so much time and 80% of it is correct? Then yeah, that's enough for me.
And the best part about it is it's only getting better. The more context AI has, the more it improves over time. And I think that's the thing that when obviously you've jumped on the bandwagon early on, that's like a blessing because, yeah, right back then it might have not been that effective, but now you have all the knowledge, you know what works, you're implementing it, and it's getting better over time. It's only going to get better. It's only going to scale your business even more. So yeah.
We can continue on user cases, but if you want to flow into how you get this working, I think the important thing is to make sure that AI talks to you as your business. And I touched on it earlier on, but actually having your knowledge base of what is ProBuild, what are you, who are you, Elliot, what is that, and having that defined within the systems you're using is the key to getting the success out of AI. Because everybody knows it's there now. Everybody knows that everybody has automation. That these systems exist. It's how you get it unique to you. That is the key thing.
Yeah. Another thing that I want to sort of jump on as well, bit off topic to AI, it's like the complete opposite. But you said about being like unique and differentiating yourself and not being generic. Another massive factor that I think is overlooked in recruitment is having a personal brand. Obviously the AI stuff, the outbound stuff, there's a study where it's over like 85% of people will do their background due diligence on you before they ever book in a call, meaning they're going to like search up your profiles. And that first impression for me, I think is one of the most important things. So tell me more about how ProBuild are building their brand.
Personal brand is massive for me. Massive. So there's different elements within construction, but what I do is quantity surveyors. They're the money men behind the construction projects you get. And it's always been, in the 15 years I've had it, a talent short marketplace. There's, pretty much always more jobs than there are people to fill these jobs. And certainly it is that way right now. So a lot of my business, well, nearly all of it, comes from either referrals, because people know me from time that they've spent with me, or I've helped them in jobs in the past, or they search quantity surveying recruiter and they find me. So everything I talk about, particularly on LinkedIn, that's our main base, that's our income, is all about quantity surveying in the world of that. I have to drive that personal brand element to make sure that people know this is what I do and this is my niche, this is what I can find you. If you're looking for quantity surveyors in Manchester and the surrounding areas, the best person to speak to is me, and that's it. We have to package that off. And it's really worked to success. That's a lot of my business comes that way, so that when we do do any outreach, or we do look out to do some marketing, then people already know my brand, know who I am. Part of the reason I'm on this podcast, as you know, Harvey. And it just works. I touched on it earlier. The reason I was slightly late was because I had a customer call me out the blue that had never used me before, never seen me before, uses a competitor. They can't find him at QS. So he's come to me because he found me on LinkedIn from some of the posts that I've been putting out there. When we then speak, I'm like, "Oh, you're working what customer? Oh, that client. Oh, I know that guy. Oh, I know Tom." And he's like, "Oh, what? Yeah, how do you know Tom? Oh, yeah, I placed him before." And then all of a sudden, my reputation is, he can see that my market reaches out there, so he's got confidence that my talent pool will be there, and then he can trust what he's seeing from the LinkedIn posts I've got and the knowledge I've got, and then he's got an individual within his circle that he can reference check.
Yeah.
And that certainly leads to higher quality business.
It's all about perception, right? People who have no idea who you are, the only understanding on getting to know you is through online and personal brand. Like you said, the reason why you're on this podcast, it's also the reason why I started this podcast, because I don't want to be known as, I guess for you don't want to be known as a recruiter. You want to be known as the guy within construction, linking that. Yeah. And for me as well, it's like, I don't want to be the AI marketing guy. I want to be the guy within recruitment, right? And having a personal brand where you're educating people on this, you're nurturing them, you're seen as a solution. That's it. So yeah, 100%. It's massive. I want to know more about construction, because obviously the market now, it's people have a lot of different views on it, on how it's changed within their industry. How is recruitment in construction right now? Yeah,
really good. So I touched upon, we're part of a bigger network, and we jump on these calls and people rate their businesses and say how they're going. About 6 to 9 months ago now, I sat in a room with 40 other recruiters, and somebody said, "Oh, is your market growing or shrinking?" I think like 39 out of the 40 put their hand up and said they were shrinking. So we've gone for a period in the last 12 months where the whole recruitment game has been slow. But people are still looking for quantity surveyors. Okay, it's hard to find quantity surveyors. So the construction market as a whole, we found 2025 to be a slower marketplace than 23 and 24, mainly because of the impact of the Building Safety Act off the Grenfell fire that came in. So there was a change in the gateway process where people had to deliver more information up front, which meant investors had to invest more up front to get the information. Therefore, it stalled. And as projects were going through, the government couldn't keep up with the demand of what they wanted to do. So I think the original target was like 12 weeks. They promised they would say yes or no on, and its last check was like 42 weeks or something. And if you get a no, then you got to go back to the beginning of the queue, and you got to wait another 12 weeks before you can get the change. So if something like your light bulb isn't quite correct or something,
Yeah.
then yeah, it can be quite a frustrating process. So 2025, because we specialise so heavily in 23 and 24 within the high-rise sector, it was just slower for us. You know, our regular customers weren't as active. They weren't as, you know, they didn't need as many staff because they didn't have many projects getting off the ground. However, there was the other element, the smaller businesses that couldn't get the outreach to quantity surveyors that I could get, that there's been really prevalent for us. And that's where I found myself today. You know, I'd say about 75% of my work is smaller businesses, people who don't have a brand, people who can't reach quantity surveyors that need quantity surveyors. And I'd say, thankfully, 25% of it is now starting to kick off in high-rise game again.
Yeah.
We're seeing buildings get through the Building Safety Act, and you know, I'd say, God, what are we now? End of April, from the beginning of April, really. It's only been a month, and that's been the difference. We're actually seeing projects get through and projects get started, therefore needing staff. So it's great to see. You know, the world is looking good, really, for construction. There's always the common problems with housing and other things that you see out there, but from my viewpoint, and recruitment is certainly a great barometer for how the market is functioning. Construction is going to be big in 2026.
Yeah, 100%. It's a growing industry, right? I mean, what's the horizon? What's the vision for Pro Build in the future? Do you have anything in mind, like a long-term goal, a long-term vision?
Yes and no. We want to scale and exit. We're not going to work on that plan, I don't believe, in 2025. It's certainly not on the radar. We're happy being a lifestyle business still.
Yeah.
Right now, my customers are, you know, individuals and people I like to work with. And to scale, I've got to get on more PSLs, work with bigger companies, work in a different way that I don't really quite like doing. So I'm not quite in that headspace right now. But yeah, let's see what 2027 brings. But right now, 2026 is all about systems for us.
Yeah.
Getting good quality systems in place to make sure that, like I touched on about the one prompt that something goes in, that something happens, that we have those systems all scalable so that we can utilise those within the business to be able to grow that. So that we do less, but the business does more.
Yeah, so leverage, right?
Yeah.
I think that's the definition. I think that's the main goal for me as well, is just to build as much leverage in the business where you can think more like a founder because you have these systems working for you, and then from that point it's just like, what's next?
Yeah,
I mean,
we're in the business, not in the business.
that's it. I mean,
One thing we didn't touch upon, that, you know, for you and your peers, if you like, Harvey, with regards to, you know, you're a young entrepreneur. One thing that I'm really, really trying to raise awareness on is how our construction industry is really getting impacted by the lack of young people coming into it. You know, you're hot on AI, so you know that lawyers, accountants, people who work on spreadsheets aren't going to be hiring as much. In construction, we still need plumbers, we still need electricians, we still need quantity surveyors. We're looking to hire people. What I find a bit of a paradox is that I've got, you know, a glutton of positions at the moment for like a project QS, somebody who's got 4 years experience in the industry. Yeah, we've got graduates coming out of industry that can't get a job. It's a real issue for our industry where people done their degree, they spent thousands of pounds to be able to do that, and they just can't get a placement at the moment. They just can't get in the industry.
why do you think that is? I think from my views on it, I think a massive part of it is obviously you go to uni. I didn't go to uni, mainly because I was a bit stupid in school. So I had no choice but to go into business. I didn't enjoy school at all, but I think the benefit for me, where I was just dropped out and went straight into business on my own, was the practicality side of it. In uni, it's very like theoretical and just pure like reading off of a sheet of paper and like educating yourself. Companies now look for that practicality within like any industry, and I think that's like quite a big factor. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that's look. I think you're better placed to know that than me. Okay, I'm not close to anybody within the world that's coming into industry at the moment. What I would say, because I think we both like reading entrepreneurial material, we think ourselves as businessmen that are successful. There's more opportunity for somebody to come in and set up a business today than there ever has been before.
Oh yeah,
Right?
100%.
The amount of ideas I have to set up a company,
Mm.
and I want to put my wife out of the NHS and tell her to stop doing that
Yeah.
high community value job to come and set up a company because she'll make more money than she'll ever
Mm.
make. The opportunity that's out there for people at 40 or at 18 has never been greater. Okay, however, there's not many people that think like you. They just don't. They don't think about starting a business, and that's a unique skill that you've got to you. So
Mm.
I couldn't link the two when you ask the question, well, why do I think that is? I couldn't say that from your viewpoint, the fact that more people can be entrepreneurs today
Mm.
is a factor within construction. I don't think that is.
Yeah.
I think that, I must say that the younger generation that are coming through, I've seen it where they don't like to work as hard.
Yeah.
Yes, I think you said to me before something that you can say again if you want, but they
The
just don't.
lazy entrepreneur.
Lazy entrepreneur, yeah, I'll
Yeah.
let you say it,
There
right?
you go.
That they don't want to work as hard as people that I did when I was coming through in the early 2000s, and it was ingrained in me that my dad worked so bloody hard every single day to try and get to where he wanted to be.
Yeah.
We picked that up, and I think that the opportunity is so great that people think they can shortcut, and not many people are willing to put in the graft. And construction is very much an industry where you have to put in the graft. We're still very old school, that mantra. We could turn around and blame AI for the lack of graduate jobs, but it's not. It's
Yeah.
absolutely not. We're so far behind AI compared to the lawyers, the accountants that we mentioned earlier on, that's not making an impact on our industry yet.
Mm.
It scares me when that does make an impact. The
Yeah.
problem is that people want to pay more money to hire talent to shortcut. They won't train. There's a lack of training in our industry. The CITB removed a massive amount of money that was allocated to training recently. There's no factor there. There's no marketing about the construction industry. People don't really want to do it, and I'm intrigued to see how now the business world is talking about the lack of lawyer jobs. Whether that does mean that we'll get more plumbers, electricians come on the scene, because I think that'll be the last thing to change as we're going through this AI revolution. Definitely.
100%.
Yeah, if
100%.
you are young and listening to this, get into our industry because it's bloody good.
Cool, man. Cool. Well, I mean, we'll wrap up there. I mean, it's been a great podcast episode. I think there's a lot of value in this. Any last words you want to bring up? Or
No, not at all. You asked me for Jerry's closing statement. I bet you don't even know who that is. I didn't think so. No, I would just say that, look, recruitment's a great landscape at the moment, and a lot of people are setting up on their own. From my journey, I've certainly done that the right way and the wrong way. And as a small business now, we are eating so much of the cake that the other companies used to have before. We can reach more people than we've ever been able to do. We can build systems that allow us to do that, and we can get out and see more people than ever. If you put the work in now, the opportunity is massively there for recruitment. Construction's great too.
100%, man. Well, I really appreciate you hopping on, and yeah, that's a good way to end up. So have a good rest of your day, mate.
Great. Thanks, Harvey.